Lewis Hamilton has broken the record for the most amount of wins ever in Formula 1. Who would have thought, when seeing that young kid talking to Ron Dennis about what was to follow, that young kid talking to Ron Dennis saying that he wants to make Formula 1 and drive one of his cars, that they were talking to someone who would be the most successful driver in the history of Formula 1 when it comes to race victories, and likely to become the most successful driver in Formula 1 when it comes to world titles. Today we are going to be reviewing the Portuguese Grand Prix. Now, before we go into the race review, make sure you be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe to this channel for more Race Week content. I do plan on upping the content over the next couple of weeks, particularly after Imola, in the break in between Imola and Istanbul. And then make sure you follow us on Twitter at RaceWeek_show. I hope to get that account back up and running sometime soon. Obviously, if you don't know, the issue I'm having with the account right now is Twitter has locked the account because it detected it was being thought it was being a robot, and I don't have any means of reactivating it right now, and probably might not be able to until next week. But hopefully that content will be back up, and also obviously make sure you visit the RaceWeek website at raceweekblog.com. So, without further ado, let's go in to the race report. The first few laps. What can I say? What happened there? That honestly was one of the most exciting starts to a Grand Prix I have seen. I mean, it all went ballistic. I mean, you had, at the start of the race, Lewis Hamilton held the lead. Verstappen looked like he might get second place, but then he got edged out wide, and then he collided with Sergio Perez. And then Carlos Sainz, where did he come from? The track was a little bit damp at the start. I think it took just a few laps basically for the track to essentially rubber in after there was a little bit of moisture on the track. But Carlos Sainz, it was absolutely amazing what he did on the first lap. And he got into the lead. And not through a collision. He actually worked his way up to the front somehow. So Carlos Sainz took the lead of the race. He had Verstappen and Perez coming together, sending Perez to the rear of the field. And Verstappen had I'm not sure had any damage. Unsurprisingly and unfortunately, Carlos Sainz's time at the front did not last long, as he was quickly passed by both Mercedes. The car did not show that much pace in race trim, to be honest. But it was a good moment for him, it can be said. Max Verstappen was back up into third after the contact, but he was struggling. It seemed that the soft tyres were not the tyre to be on, and he was struggling to keep up with the two Mercedes at the start of the race. Whilst here in the battle, you had a battle between Stroll and Norris, which did not go to plan. They made contact going into the first corner, where for the second time, Lance Stroll was sent off the track at the first corner for the second time this weekend. But unlike in practice, he was able to get going, and unlike in practice, he was given full blame. They judged that he had turned in on Lando Norris and slapped him in the wrist with a 5-second time penalty. Now, Bottas led most of the early stages, but then Lewis Hamilton reeled him in. Interestingly, it came just after he said he was struggling with his tyres. And then, from that moment on, boom, fastest lap, boom, fastest lap. And he was catching Valtteri Bottas before he eventually took that position, the lead of the race. And the rest is history. He did not look back. Whilst the race at the front may have been over, basically at this point, there was a lot of action in the midfield. You had two ex-teammates, Ocon and Perez, battling it out. I mean, both drivers making their tyres last a really long time and getting really good points hauls in the process. Like, Sergio Perez was one driver of the day for his heroics with his strategy. And then into the pits, it was a one-stop race for the two Mercedes. Both cars came into the pits around the middle of the race. And one of the drivers that was starring was Pierre Gasly. He was the AlphaTauri. Since he changed chassis, the AlphaTauri seemed to have really good pace around this circuit. He was matching the likes of the Renaults, the Racing Points, and the McLarens in that car. And as you can see, he managed to get past Daniel Ricciardo. It was a disappointing race, whilst Ricciardo's race was an opposite trajectory to Gasly's, to be honest. Whilst Gasly went forwards, Ricciardo went backwards. As you can see, here's Carlos Sainz managing to get past, because Carlos Sainz kind of went backwards after he lost the lead, but then went forwards. Whilst it was a miserable day for Lance Stroll after he got that 5-second penalty after the collision. He then had another 5-second penalty for track limits, and then he retired from the race. We're not sure if there was actually a problem with his car, but they retired him. But we'll probably know the reason why soon. Whilst at the end of the race, the main interest was in the battle for 5th place. Sergio Perez had worked his way back up to 5th after the collision with Verstappen with some great tyre saving. But as I said earlier, the soft tyres did not work as well as drivers expected. And then Pierre Gasly, there was quite a hairy moment the lap before he made the move stick, where Perez moved very late and they were so close to contact. But the next lap, Gasly made the move stick and he was followed through by Carlos Sainz. But at the front, Lewis Hamilton took the race victory. As it says at the top there, a new world record. 92 Grand Prix victories. No one else has ever managed that. And he won by 25 seconds in the end. It was an incredible drive. Once he took these, probably the most dominant we have seen from him. Valtteri Bottas had absolutely no answer for him, finishing in 2nd place. Max Verstappen was pleased to finish in 3rd. He is kind of admitting that the Red Bull is finished. That is basically where Red Bull is at the moment. Charles Leclerc, a very quiet but another incredible drive for him in that difficult car to finish in 4th place for Ferrari. Then in 5th place you had Pierre Gasly, as I mentioned, another great drive from the AlphaTauri. And then in 6th place was Carlos Sainz. Would be a bit disappointing for him after he led the early stage of the race. Then you have Sergio Perez finishing in 7th, Esteban Ocon finishing in 8th, Kimi Raikkonen finishing in 9th with, well, not Kimi Raikkonen, Daniel Ricciardo finishing in 9th. Esteban Ocon, he made his tyres last so long into the race, but when he switched to the softs, he did not make the progress expected. Once again, another driver to struggle on these soft tyres. I mean, the reason that teams did not know that the soft tyre wasn't a good tyre was because in practice they could not find that out they could not get the data. Daniel Ricciardo finished in 9th with Sebastian Vettel taking the final point in 10th. Kimi Raikkonen made a great start, but unfortunately did not manage to capitalise on it and finished in 11th. Another bad day for Alex Albon. There's been a lot of speculation about what is going to happen with Alex Albon. I honestly think they should, maybe not for Imola, but for Istanbul to the end of the season, they should swap Albon and Gasly around to try it out. If Gasly performs, then great, he stays on for next year. If he doesn't, then he goes back in the AlphaTauri, and then Red Bull go for experience. And then that'll be what basically show Red Bull that they need experience in that car. I think that is what they should do. Lando Norris had a tough day in 13th, could not recover from the incident with Stroll, and also had a slow puncture during the race. Then you had George Russell finishing in 14th, he was pleased with that. Then you had Antonio Giovinazzi, Kevin Magnussen, Romain Grosjean, Nicolas Latifi, and a bad day for Danny Kvyat rounding out the finishes, with Lance Stroll the race's only retirement after a miserable day. So, now I am going to do a team-by-team review of the race in reverse constructors order, as always. Okay day for them. A good drive from George Russell, although those first points are still eluding him. But a solid effort from him to finish in 14th place. We barely saw anything of them really, finishing in 16th and 17th place, not showing any signs of scoring any points, and another bad day for them. I'm pretty sure that they'll be wanting some more investment for 2021, but it could be a rocky road ahead for them. I think they are probably focusing on 2022 right now. For a while it looked like Kimi Räikkönen could score a point for them, but Sebastian Vettel got that position, and disappointingly after an incredible first lap, there were no points on the board for the 2007 champion. Antonio Giovinazzi finished in 15th place, being passed by George Russell in the closing stages, but a disappointing day for Alfa Romeo. Something that could have been a lot better. A great drive from Pierre Gasly to finish in 5th place. The car had a lot more pace than it did in the Nürburgring, where it was a big mystery as to where their pace was. But Pierre Gasly was back on form this weekend, and he scored. He was on form in the Nürburgring, but now he had a good car and he was on form. He finished in 5th place. I don't know why he did not feature in the drive of the day, because I think he was, in my opinion, he was the driver of the day. Great drive from him. And AlphaTauri do lose a few points to Ferrari in the standings, but the whole reason for that was Charles Leclerc finishing in 4th place. As I've said many times, I think he is proving himself more this year than last year, and he is showing himself perfectly. He is basically now passing every test, and he's the whole reason why Ferrari are ahead of AlphaTauri in the standings. In fact, he's the whole reason why Ferrari don't have an embarrassingly low amount of points. The way that Charles Leclerc has managed himself in a difficult car. Disappointing day for Renault to be finishing in 8th and 9th after a solid run of form in the past 5 rounds after their podium. They're still only 6 points off 3rd in the Constructors, so that the battle for 3rd is still very close. again, they did not have that much pace around this circuit. But a great first lap for both drivers saw them at the front of the field. It's a shame that Carlos Sainz could not hold on to it. Obviously, Lando Norris had that incident with Lance Stroll. But I'd say they should be pleased to still be in 4th in the Constructors right now. The car had great pace around this circuit, but it was a day that could have been better with both drivers being involved in incidents. But a great drive from Perez ensures that the team stays in 3rd in the Constructors, despite losing a couple of points to McLaren. So, Racing Point, I think, will be quite relieved to be exiting Portugal still in 3rd in the standings. Kind of a similar story to usual for Red Bull. A good day for them within themselves, but they're not able to be a match for the Mercedes yet, finishing in 3rd place. As I've said, Alex Albon, a poor day for him, finishing in 12th. But so Max Verstappen is currently carrying the weight of the team. They're currently still in 3rd in the Constructors, or in 2nd in the Constructors, but it looks like their chances of the Constructors title are going to end in Imola. Kind of the usual, really. Dominant, and they now have a real chance of clinching the Constructors' Championship next week in Imola. A 7th Constructors' Championship. They had an outside chance this weekend, but they might have a real shot next weekend in that. So it's going to be... So can Mercedes clinch a 7th world title? Constructors' title next week, we'll have to see. But another 1-2 finish for them. And obviously they're going to be leaving Portimao very happy indeed. So, taking a look at the drivers' standings. Obviously, I haven't managed to got them up on the screen yet. But Lewis Hamilton now has a 77-point lead. He was so close, actually, to having a shot of winning the title in Imola. But he's not quite got enough points to do that. It looks like his first chance, and it will be a real shot of winning the title, will be in Istanbul Park. But it's looking like it's just a matter of time before Lewis Hamilton clinches that 7th world title, which would actually make him statistically the most successful driver of all time. I mean, he'd have equalled the titles record and have the records such as the most wins, most pole positions, and so much more. And Valtteri Bottas is still in 2nd place, only 17 points in front of Max Verstappen. Daniel Ricciardo still holds 4th in the standings despite a tough day, ahead of Charles Leclerc in 5th, Sergio Perez in 6th, Lando Norris in 7th. And then you have one thing that's interesting, a lot of people, Alex Albon in the Red Bull is only 1 point ahead of Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. That is not going to look good for Alex Albon if he finishes behind Pierre Gasly in the standings in an inferior car. Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 10 ahead of Lance Stroll in 11th, who's still hanging in there in that battle. Esteban Ocon is in 12th on 40 points. Then you have a massive gap back to Sebastian Vettel in 13th. Then you have Danny Kvyat, Nico Hulkenberg, Antonio Giovinazzi, Kimi Raikkonen, Romain Grosjean, Kevin Magnussen, Nicholas Latifi, and George Russell. the two Williams as the only drivers who have not scored a point yet. And that is it from the race review for the Portuguese Grand Prix. The record has been broken. We knew it was a matter of time before it happened, but it has been done. And it's only a matter of time before he it looks like it is only a matter of time before he clinches that 7th world title. That is it from my live coverage of when it comes to the Portuguese Grand Prix. Make sure you tune in next week for the Friday recap, or the midweek recap on Thursday, which will be the next live show. And then, of course, make sure you tune in to this channel for Imola next week, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix. Of course, there won't be a Friday recap because there's no Friday session. It will be just a qualifying day recap and a Sunday recap. But thank you very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, comment and subscribe to this YouTube channel for more RaceWeek content. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at RaceWeek_show. Hope you will have that account back up and running soon. And make sure you give the site a visit at RaceWeekblog.com. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next week for the midweek recap. And of course, as far as racing's concerned, when it comes to the live shows, we'll see you next week for the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix reviews. Goodbye.